I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. I want to get started today with the broadcast on the Frank and Jesse James, or Jesse and Frank James. Frank James is the name of the person that is suspect now in the subway shooting on yesterday out at Sunset Park on the N train, where 10 people were injured by gunshot wounds. And they are now looking for him for more than 24 hours, and they've not been able to find him. But they've discovered that his name is Frank James. They have discovered that he has left some postings on his social media platforms talking about killing and mass shootings and killings of people. By the way, you know, Frank James was the brother of Jesse James, the great robber, the great train robber. So I think that's very interesting. And there are a number of very ill-fated reports about this man coming through. I think he's 62 or 65 years of age and has addresses in both Wisconsin and also in Pennsylvania. He has two major residences, and they're on the trail. They're looking for him. It was a horrific event. I think what he has done, if you see those people scurrying from the subway station, they're in Sunset Park, is going to be a lifelong concern about people and the safety of New York City subway system. He had a Glock 17 and with three, if you will, extended clips to go into that Glock, shooting 17 rounds per clip, along with some smoke canisters and some other kinds of items that he had in a bag that was set to do a lot of damage. And the reports are that the gun jammed, and that's the reason why the shooting stopped. I find it interesting, though, that nobody was killed. You know, if you've never been on a New York City subway, in the mornings, those things are jam-packed. They're sardine people to people. No one was killed. I find that very interesting. At first, I thought he was intentionally not to try to kill anybody because all the shots, all the people that were injured below the knee. I find that very interesting. I'm not sure exactly what to make of that. But I do want to say this to Brother Frank James. You better surrender, because Al the Buzzard Sharpton and Ben the Undertaker Crump, they ain't coming to help you. So I would say to you, man, listen, go ahead, you know, if it's you, to surrender, you know. And the other thing is that Brother Frank James, you can surrender to me here at the ATLAH Missionary Church. That way you won't get shot. You can say, call me, Pastor Manning, and our number is 877-777-0734, and set up a time to come here and surrender here. Now that I've said that, the police are going to be watching this church, you know, but I think that they ought to be courteous enough to know if you're coming here to surrender. They'll let you walk in and not try to take you down in the street, creating a street scene and a street fight. That would not be honorable of them to do that. But you can surrender to me. And so you can call me at number 877-777-0734, and we can facilitate your surrender here. And we can then use this perhaps to help other people. And I would like to talk to you, Brother Frank, about, you know, why you did what you did, why you have such anger, why you got fired from so many jobs. What is it that's causing you to be the behavior, the very disturbed spirit that you are? I'm a pastor and a counselor, and I've dealt with a whole lot of men. I counseled with men in prison who had 2 life sentences on them, men who killed a lot of people, stabbed and killed and raped and robbed. And so I am experienced at this kind of a thing, perhaps more so than anybody else that you might know or come in contact with. But I will facilitate your surrender if that's what you would want to be able to do. You know, if you're out there in the street, you know, some citizen might take it upon themselves to blow you away if they see you. They're looking for you everywhere, man. They got your picture everywhere. So I wanted to be able to say that. Now, the other thing is that the Sunset Park station where you see all those police officers, I want to give people who don't know New York a geographical walkthrough of how unusual it was that this should have taken place on the N train. Yeah. And that would happen at in the tunnel the station called Sunset Park. It is reported that Frank James boarded that train at a stop called Kings Highway. Now, Kings Highway is in Brooklyn, and it's on what would be the west part of Brooklyn, going out towards a little higher up would be Borough Park, and then Sunset Park, and then you've got Bay Ridge in that general region. And Kings Highway and on the N train is not a place where a whole lot of Hamite people hang out. Now, some do live there, to be sure. Obviously, Hamite people live everywhere, but not a lot of them. So it would be strange that he would get on board a train there. I mean, if he said he boarded a train in Harlem on 125th Street, okay, all right, that would be understood, or Prospect Avenue in the South Bronx. But that's a really strange place for him to have boarded the train. Kings Highway on the N train. And then Sunset Park, for the train and a ride for 6 stops before he decides to start shooting, is another strange phenomenon. If you look at the footage, but those people exiting the train with the smoke coming out of that, you'll see that most of those people are Japheth people or Latino. Had that train been coming out of Harlem, that thing would have been sure enough mahogany. But so it's strange that he would have stood out like a sore thumb. A huge, dark-skinned man on a train like that. So I find the geography of that very interesting. Why that line? Why not the 8th Avenue? Why not take the A train? Why not the number 2, the RRT line? I find that very. I would like to question him as to why that would happen, and I think it would explain a whole lot of things. But one final thing, and I promise not to inflict myself upon you any further, but I do want to extend the opportunity to help in the aid and the arrest and the transition to the police department of Frank James, should he choose to use our office to do so. And let me leave you with this on this matter, that Hamite men such as Frank James, in my opinion, of 40 years of ministry, are under a great delusion. And this delusion has been greatly accelerated over the past 20 years or so. And then it has put on steroids after being greatly accelerated. It's been put on steroids over the last 20 years, and 12 years since the advent of Barack Hussein Obama and the LGBTQ and the transitioning of our humanity here in America to genderless identity. And one of the things, and I can say this as a black man, I'm a Hamite, but you understand. One of the things that was most important to us, we didn't have wealth. We didn't have a lot of political influence or influence in general. What we had was our masculinity. That's what we had. And I grew up in an age and a time where men were men. Though they weren't wealthy, but we had our masculinity. Our fathers were fathers of 8, 9, 10, 15 children from one woman. We had our masculinity. That's gone now since Obama. And it's wretchedly gone since LGBTQ, where gender is no longer something that's sacred. And what I have to tell you with the men like Frank James and homeless men that have lost their way, sleeping in the street on cardboard boxes, they're under this great attack by this so-called genderless ideal and the loss of our masculinity. Because at one point, that's all black men had. And, Chris Rock said in a comedy skit several years ago that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and they've got one of them in just about every city, especially in every ghetto, he said it's the most dangerous street in America. And he was right. It was comical. People laughed to keep from crying. Because the very essence of Dr. King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is where it runs through ghettos where you can get killed in a heartbeat by black people. because of their delusional understanding. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And it's getting more dangerous now with these homeless men who've lost their masculinity. You people with the LGBTQ, Obama, y'all don't know what you've done. You've castrated a whole generation of men like Frank James. And they've lost their way. They've lost the one thing that they had, their masculinity, and you're telling them they don't have it anymore. And they've lost the ability to keep a job. This man was fired 33 times. They've lost the ability to keep their jobs. They've lost the ability to marry their women. They've lost the ability to father their children. Now, I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just telling you what has happened. And that's why the Joseph Project is so important. And that's why I take authority. You say, man, you're stepping way out there asking Frank James to surrender to you. I'm already on the Joseph Project of taking crime off the streets of New York and America. And this will be a first step should he choose to come. One final thing that you will never hear the Hamite man say or the Hamite community say because they don't know how to say it. I don't know what it means if it implicates them somehow or another. But you know, Al Sharpton is a known drug dealer. Now, he doesn't deal drugs anymore. I don't think he does. But he is known to the FBI, known to the New York City Police Department, known to the mafia, and known to the world. That Al Sharpton, who has a broadcast on MSNBC television, is a known unrepentant drug dealer who was selling drugs right here in Harlem. We got him on video. We got him on video doing a drug deal in a seedy room in Harlem. He's a known drug dealer, a snitch, wore wire for the FBI, and snitched on other drug dealers. The reason why, you see him there, the evidence is right there, yet he's on video selling drugs, yet MSNBC has given him an honorable spot on television, and Obama had him down at the White House for every event more than 85 times. This drug dealer on video doing a drug deal, Al Sharpton. And everybody knows this. The Hamite man knows it. Frank James knows it. The problem is, it appears that Al Sharpton was able to get white man's justice. Ain't that nothing? You know, you bust a black man with a bag of marijuana, he goes to jail for 10 years. Bust a white man with a kilo of heroin, he gets a slap on the wrist in community service. Or then gets a big job on television like Al Sharpton. So the Hamite brother doesn't know how to say this. The Hamite preacher don't know how to say it. The Hamite community don't know how to say it. But Al Sharpton, the biggest phony ever, got a white man's justice as a drug dealer. Never did any time, never spent a day in jail. He got white man's justice, yet he run around out there in the street talking about no justice, no peace. And this is another thing that's very disturbing, is how the so-called leaders of the Hamite or black people can be such hypocrites, and they have nothing to look up to anymore. Perhaps Frank James had nothing to look up to anymore, so he just thought, I'd just start killing people. That was not the right path to go down. But I think that America, you need to hear me, Pharaoh, Eric Adams, you need to hear me. There's going to be a bloodbath in New York City. And not that I'm promoting it. I want to see it. God forbid. God forbid. God forbid. I don't want to see it. I'm just telling you the crime wave is here. And we are just seeing the first stages. This thing is going to develop to a tsunami. It could be no crime wave. This thing is going to develop into a tsunami. But the Joseph Project, Pharaoh, Eric Adams, the Joseph Project can calm the sea. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant.
King, child of the King, child of the King, child of the King, child of the King. The King.